Ever felt like you're just existing, not living to your fullest? Meet Karen Lurie, a master of transformation who's cracked the code to unlocking your true potential. From subconscious programming to restoring health on the West Coast, her methods are mind-blowing. But here's the kicker. She's got secrets that could change your life forever. Stay tuned to find out how Karen's revolutionary techniques can help you break free from limitations and live a life of purpose and passion. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to unlock even more exclusive content.
Welcome back to another transformative episode of the Transformative Live Show. Today, we are diving deep into the world of health, relationships, and health consciousness with none other than Sharon Lurie. Sharon is a true master of transformation, helping people from all walks of life unlock their true, full potential through powerful practices and subconscious programming. She's also working on a fascinating project, restoring health on the West Coast, which we'll dive into a bit later. But trust me, you don't want to miss a minute of today's conversation, especially if you're ready to transform every area of your life. Stick around as Karen shares her story of personal transformation and gives away something extra special to our listeners today.
And we'll be right back. Come with me, let's rap. Take a trip and we back. And we'll be right back. I stand for what you stand for. Hey, I get on the mic and I transform. Follow me on this world tour. The asteroid that you can't avoid. Follow me.
Thank you,
All right,
Marcus.
Karen. Yeah, it's good to have you.
Yeah, glad to see you. Lovely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, indeed. And there's so much that we can share with our listeners. And I think we will probably need another episode or two to go into just so much of your backstory and how you came into this work. But could you just briefly share with our listeners how you can guide people to become true masters in areas like health, relationships, and wealth consciousness?
Yeah, I was really sick. I had undiagnosed narcolepsy. That means you fall asleep a lot during the day. And I was getting divorced and I was depressed and I was suicidal. And then in order for me to heal my body, I had to fire I love them, they're my friends, but I had to fire all the doctors and psychiatrists that I was going to and the psychologists I was going to because I was staying sick for 30-something years. I'd spent so much money and so much time, and I was just stuck in this sickness.
Right.
And I started to do things to heal. I studied mind-body science in college, and I really loved how the mind affected the body and vice versa. And so I started to think about that, and then I used all my acting experience because I have done a ton of acting and played different characters and seen how my physiology shifted with each character. And then I also I'm friends with Deepak Chopra. I've been to tons of his things. I've been friends with Bruce Lipton and have been to many of his events, and also just traveled with his wife. And he was part of the travel, but it was mostly Margaret and I. I love that woman, and I love Bruce, and I love Deepak. But so they both, and then other people I've kind of studied with, it all kind of merged with mind body science, Deepak, Bruce, acting, and then I'm an acrobat and trapeze. I used to fly trapeze too, so I had a whole other physical level of prowess that it all merged together. And so in order to heal myself, I had to get healthy in every moment, emotionally healthy in every moment. That emotional health then translated into more physical health. And the emotional and spiritual health, I want to say, created for me an intuition on how to heal. I kept getting downloads of what to do to help myself heal. And then it ended up helping other people. And I get to watch them transform, and I keep transforming. And the word, when I think of the word healing, to me, it means to keep improving, to keep getting better and better and better. And so I see that in my own life. I'm constantly improving, but I'm also seeing that with others. And that's such a good feeling, is to watch other people thrive and to watch other people become the person they want to be and have the life they want to live. It just is so moving and beautiful and rewarding.
It is. I think when you start seeing other people on their journey, it really is a reminder that, like, hey, I'm not done either. And this is great to see that they're like moving along where they are. And it reminds you to be so grateful for where you came to where you are now and where you can keep going to. And I think that's where people get it misconstrued. They think that, like, healing, let's get it done. I'm done. I'm good. I'm good. And and for you, where did that kind of like click in your head and like, okay, this is not like just a one time thing, boom, boom, bang, get the cure, I'm out of here.
I think it just happened sort of organically because I've always had a connection with my spirit, but as I kept staying with my spirit, like all these, I had PTSD, I had the narcolepsy, I had chronic pain, I had my eyesight was bad, my hair was thinning, I was just like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Thyroid was off, just really had a lot of stuff. And and my spirit kept giving me, I want to say, guidance. It wasn't always audible. Sometimes it was, but it was often, I was just sort of almost literally pushed, physically pushed, but
Yeah.
energetically into doing other new things. And what I found was I really like to learn. I really like to keep growing. So life is really easy for me now. I don't have problems anymore. I'm super healthy. I feel fit. I'm active and I keep getting better. So everything keeps transforming and keeps getting better and better. So I don't need healing of negative things anymore. And I had had a lot of emotional trauma and psychological trauma that I healed before, but it keeps getting better. So things that I didn't know I needed healing in just sort of magically improve. And that, I think, is a lot to do with my spiritual connection. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a real good segue into like just my next question and thinking about like how your approach resonates with so many different groups of people, veterans, doctors, police chiefs, those type of people. What is it about your approach exactly that really resonates well with these type of people?
I, for me, I can listen really well. And so I do, before I work with anybody, I do a kind of extensive discovery call where I really start to understand them. And then as we're working together, I understand more, obviously. And I think when I work with people, even though I work in a group a lot of times, I still do privates, but I do work in a group most of the time with most people. The group, um, even when somebody has an issue, I know their history, I know what they want, I know what troubles they've had, uh, and then I know where to go, and I'm literally channeling my spirit, which knows their spirit, which knows the answer. So I'm not, I don't call myself a channel, but I am doing that. I'm not really thinking that much. I mostly am appreciating and listening and loving, and then the wisdom comes through me. So I never get tired. I can coach people till sometimes late, hours sometimes, and I never get tired. I'm just letting it move through me. So I think that's why, and I'm also very authentic. I can say if I don't understand something or if I have a problem with something or whatever, if I'm uncomfortable, I'm just honest. And I think people also trust that. And then people also trust because a lot of people have seen me transform, and the transformation has been, so shocking in a lot of ways because I've literally become, I'm still the same person on the inside, but I've just evolved so much, and people see it and they see the difference. A lot of people who've known me for some time have seen the difference. And so it just works out. And also, I just meet people, and when I meet people, they feel my energy. Like one of the police, he was a captain, and he was also a veteran. I met him at a restaurant. I was eating by myself and he was with somebody. And then he literally, he and his date followed me out of the restaurant, like they rushed to follow me out. And they were like, "What is going on with you?" I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You're smiling, you're by yourself and you're having a great time. What is going on? I think you had a better time than anybody else in the restaurant." And I was like, I wrote a book. Here, you can have a copy, So I just gave him the book, and then he became a client. And because I had to heal my own PTSD, I know it seems like it's very tricky, but I was able to heal his, and he had, his best friend shot in the face in Vietnam,
Whoa.
while he was standing watching. And, and then he worked on these murders in LA called the Nash murders, which are right near my house. But a long time ago, he's older. And so he had worked on all these things. And so he had, PTSD, depression, anxiety. But I knew, because I had healed all those things in myself, and because I listened, I had a really good understanding of how to do that. And also, I don't get riled up by people every once in a while, but once every 3 months, maybe, like a little, and it's not even for very long. It's for like 2 seconds, and then I'm done. But I think people can feel my energy. And, there's a quote that says, who you are, I'm going to misquote it, who you are speaks louder than what you say, or something like that. Who you are, I'm totally messing it up, but it's something about people read your energy before they can hear what you say, before they can, anything, they get a sense of your energy. And I think a lot of people can get that through me, either from meeting or through things like this or through other things that I do.
Indeed. You have a wonderful background, by the way. If for those who are watching, you probably are captivated by it, which is like a true, reflection of who she is as a spirit, and your powerful transformation story. I mean, you have been exposed to a lot of great people. You mentioned Deepak Chopra, who's one of my favorites as well, and then you even have pictures with President Barack Obama. You've been exposed to a lot of things, and what you described earlier with just being able to listen, active listening, which is very, very crucial if you have a lot of subconscious programming. And I think that plays a huge key role in your coaching. Maybe you could explain to our listeners just how these hidden beliefs, especially, can impact our lives and keep us away from people who uh, are viewed as one of the leaders out there and one of the gurus. But just tell us some examples of what happens when people shift from bad to positive programming, because I think that's very important.
I do too. Before I do that, I don't want to denigrate the subconscious, because we need it. So the subconscious keeps you breathing all night. The subconscious helps you drive safely when you're listening to the music or to some other thing. The subconscious enables you to walk. So the subconscious does a lot to digest. It does a lot of stuff. And so it's not intrinsically bad. It's just that the programming of the subconscious can be bad. And so, for example, for me, things I heard was, "You're not good enough. Money doesn't grow on trees. What are you, the center of the universe?" So I had all this kind of programming that was in my way. I didn't feel like I was worthy. I didn't feel like I mattered to anybody. And so what happened was I attracted people who mirrored what I didn't realize I was doing. So with the subconscious, you don't see it because it seems normal to you.
Right.
So when I was a kid and I was I got sexually abused as a pretty young kid in elementary and junior high, in high school. And part of it was what happened was, I was in this panic position where my physiology was like, stressed, and I didn't know it. And I went to go get biofeedback from this doctor a long time ago. This is like 30 years ago.
Wow.
He goes, "How do you feel right now after we did the biofeedback?" I said, "I feel kind of normal." He goes, "You're in a stage 4 panic attack." I said, "Really?" This was a long time ago. This was when I was not healthy, right? And I didn't know it. So I'm attracting other people whose physiologies are up, and defensive or angry or afraid or whatever. So I was attracting the same kind of people, or who had been abused in the same kind of ways. And so I was attracting that, and I could not see it until I started getting really connected with my spirit in a bigger way. I've been meditating 35 years, right in there. But I really started to get healthy about 15 years ago. And in that time, my things showed up. Like I could see them because I think my spirit was giving them to me in a way where I was really open, because I needed to heal. I couldn't function. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. And so I felt my spirit providing me insights to things that would heal stuff. So like, for example, my mind used to work all the time, crazy, repeating stuff, telling myself the same story over and over again. And one time I was telling myself a story of something I didn't like, and my mind was spinning. I was thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I don't have that anymore. My mind is super quiet now. But at the time, I said, please help me. I don't want to keep repeating this. How do I stop this obsession with stuff I don't want? I wasn't even aware of it until that moment. At that moment, I became aware that I had been doing that. And my spirit said, "You must harness the vehicle of obsession." And I said, "What?" And my spirit said, take some songs that you like and start to repeat the phrases of the songs. Not the whole song if it's got, mixed up stuff, but just a song, because music creates a loop. So I started singing, "I feel good, na 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 na, like I knew that I would now." I just started finding songs that made me feel good, that had lyrics I liked or parts of lyrics that I liked. It gave my mind, I always think of the mind as a genie. This was a friend of mine named Howard Polans. He used to tell me this. He's gone now, but I love him. He was this interesting man. And he said that you are going to, how do I say this in his weird way? He talked like Elmer Fudd. He would talk about how everything is atoms and quarks and neutrinos and just tiny particles. And he would say, you can go through a wall if you believe it. And he would talk about how our belief systems, and this is like almost 40 years ago, he would talk about our belief systems and how if we believed we could walk through the wall, we could. And I started to practice, what can I believe? This is a spoon I bent 3 days in a row. And it became, my first belief was I can't do it. And then my second belief was, let me try. And then my third belief was I can. And I bent it mostly with my mind. I used my finger to move it around, but there was no effort on my finger. And I started to experience, it's kind of cool. So I started to experience things through my spirit that started to shift everything. And the thing that Howard told me was he said, your mind is like a genie. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, the genie's like, okay, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And he says, if you imagine you got a genie and you rub the lamp and the genie comes out and, what do you want? What do you want? You go, I'd like a big house. And so boom, you've got this big house. And so you're in there for about 2 seconds and the genie comes back and says, what do you want? What do you want? And you say, well, I want a beautiful family. Boom, you have this beautiful family. And then you're overwhelmed because it just came, right? And he said, then the genie's like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And he said, and I said, what if you don't need anything yet? You just want to appreciate the family in the house. And he said, then you've got to do something to occupy the genie. He said, ask the genie to create a flagpole. I said, a flagpole? He goes, yeah, just create a flagpole and then say to the genie, I want you to go up and down the flagpole, which is a mantra, up and down the flagpole until I call you again. So that's what I mean when I say I don't think anymore, because my genie, my brain, is doing a mantra or has done mantras kind of throughout everything that I'm doing. And the mantras can shift and change, but they have occupied the genie so that now my mind is quiet.
That's fascinating. You know, that piece of advice right there, those gems that you just dropped, you know, if we threw them in the lake, they'll turn into gold. You know, so so I love it. You know, I love it. Uh,
Thank you.
and going over just some of the notes that like you gave me prior to this, and I think this goes real good with like just the awakening and the shift that you've been having, and you know, it's just learning to live through death. And I think a lot of people who are fearful of death, when they hear, you know, living and then to death, they, you know, they get scared of that type of stuff. You know, can you explain on what that means and how you apply it to your life and the lives of people you coach?
Yeah, I've died a couple times and I have dead people come to me.
Okay.
And the first thing, I died when I was 3 and then when I was 18 in or near death experiences, but I tasted it. And when I was 18 when I did it, I remember that more than when I was 3. But when I was 18, it was I was spinnaker flying for a modeling job, and I didn't have enough weight, and it was heavy, big winds, and I got whipped from a boat over the mast was 65 feet, so I could see the top of the mast of the boat, and I got whipped onto my back onto the ocean, and I went down, and it was in Hawaii where it was past Hawaii is a volcano. All the islands are volcanoes. So the ocean, so you see sand for a little while and then it just drops off to ocean because it just came out of it just came up from a volcano. So it's not a gradual. So I'm out in the middle of the ocean. I don't know where I am. I can't tell where up is anymore. The whole ocean's confusing. And I started to give up because I just couldn't figure it out. And I didn't have any power. The air had been knocked out of me and I'm underwater. I can't breathe. And then I started to feel this love, this total acceptance, this sense of being connected, of being known. I didn't knew that there were people there that knew me, but I didn't know who they were, but I knew they knew me. They loved me. They totally accepted me. And it was the most beautiful feeling I had ever known. And then I heard a voice, do you want to live or die? And I thought of my mom. I want to live. And so I immediately got up to the surface. I still couldn't breathe because the air had been knocked out of me and I had swallowed water. So I was just not able to use my lungs. And somebody was trying to rescue me from the boat, but it was far away. He was throwing, he wouldn't get into the water. He was just throwing a lifesaver thing, those buoy things that you can hold on to. And I couldn't get to it. I didn't have any energy. I couldn't get to it. And I started to go back down. I think I swallowed more water as well. And as I went down, I heard the voice again because I was starting to just lose it. And the voice said, do you want to live or die? And I thought about my mom. And I don't know how it happened, but I got onto the buoy. It was like probably 30 feet away. And the waves were, not huge, but 10, 15 feet. And so it was pretty big. And they weren't breaking at this point because they were out in the ocean part, so they weren't breaking over me, but they were big, and it was past the surf line. So I finally got up. I probably was out 9 or 10 minutes, but what I got was that death felt really good. And I asked later when I started getting well, my father was dead, and so was one of my first boyfriends, like. And probably the one I was with the longest. And I felt that boyfriend, he had written a song for me called I Feel the Magic, and Belinda Carlisle sang it back in the 80s or 90s or something. It was really funny. Anyway, he started singing, I feel the magic like I never felt before. I imagine that it's always been there, but like an angel looking after me. And so he started singing this, and I didn't know why I was singing this song. I hardly thought about that song, because this was years later. And then finally I realized, oh, it's Johnny. And then Johnny would sing that song. I said to him, Johnny, you killed yourself, because he had killed himself years after we'd broken up, but he had killed himself. And I thought, if you kill yourself, you're not going to go to heaven. Right. But I said, Johnny, how are you talking to me? I thought you killed yourself. And he goes, no, Karen. He said, when anybody dies, it's just all love. And I said, really? And that kind of tapped me back into that experience I had on the ocean. And I said, tell me more. I said, what do you mean? And he was telling me all these things. It was like download after download. Now he's dead, but so I'm just kind of receiving this information. And he just told me it's just love. He said, when you die, there's no problem. You don't have any more issues. You don't have any more pain. You don't have any more sickness. And he said, but you don't have to die to do that. And he said, Karen, I was suicidal at the time. He goes, Karen, I want you to stay alive. He said, you have so much to look forward to. And I didn't believe him, but I started to do it. And every time my mind went into this negative pattern, Johnny would start to sing that song. And it was a good distraction. And it would make me realize, oh, he's here. He's looking after me. He's my angel. And then my dad, I was writing out appreciation one night for like 2 hours. I was just on a roll. And I got up and decided to go to bed and brush my teeth and all. And I went into my bedroom and I started to get in the bed and I felt my dad. And he had died right around the same time Johnny did, actually. And I said, I felt him, and I felt him loving me, and I felt him proud of me.
Wow.
And he'd said he loved me, but I don't think he ever said he was proud of me. He got really mad at me. He wouldn't talk to me for like years when he was living. But now he was pure love. And the room was so thick with his love that I was instantly crying, instantly snotty, sorry, probably TMI, but I just couldn't believe it. And he started to help me. I said to him and Johnny, like the next morning, I said, Dad, Johnny, isn't there, what about hell? Johnny, didn't you go to hell for killing yourself? And Johnny goes, there is no hell. And I said, but then why do they all say it? And my dad goes, crowd control. And so they both made me laugh. They were both super funny, and they both gave me wisdom about stuff. And I didn't bring it. It's not close enough. I can get it. But my dad, my mom is Greek. My dad is not, but my mom is Greek. And my dad said, why don't you make a book for her? The word eulogy, I love etymology, the study of where words come from. The word eulogy means good words, the study of good about someone. And he said, why wait till your mom is dead? Why don't you make a book for her and get everybody who loves her, the people she worked with, my brother, my nieces and nephew, anybody, my friends, my brother's friends, her friends, my cousins, ask them to write a letter and put their picture in the book. So she'll always have these letters of appreciation and ask them to say, what is it you appreciate about my mom? And so these people wrote beautiful letters, everybody. And I got to read each one. And then I got to put them together in a book. And yes, it was great from my mom. She loves it. She still has it. My brother has a copy. I have a copy. And then my other cousin who wanted a copy got it. And she loves my mom. My mom is her kind of second mom. When my mom's sister died, her mom. Anyway, so that book, what it really did is it made me love my mom more, because I was understanding, I loved her, but I was understanding how my cousin felt, how these people who knew her before I knew her, how these people who worked with her felt, how my brother and my nephew and my niece and other niece felt about her, how my best friends felt about her. And, they said so many beautiful things, and there were so many great stories that it just made me go, wow, she's an extraordinary person. And I had only seen her through my point of view versus this expansive viewpoint. And it just changed my whole relationship with her. I mean, my relationship had already changed for the better from being in alignment and stuff. But when I did this, it just made it even richer. And it made me appreciate everybody who wrote it as well, because, you know, you just get to see a bit of who they are. I understood my cousin better, both of my cousins better. I understood my nieces and nephews better. I understood my brother and sister-in-law better. You know, just all became this love fest, you know, and that was my dad giving me the etymology of eulogy and saying, why wait till she dies? Give it to her now.
You know, that's absolutely beautiful. And I feel like a lot of people are cheated because like they, you know, they don't take the time to really accept some of that. I don't even want to call it advice at this point, because, you know, just be able to get those downloads from people who's already there and already can see much farther than what we can see. And to know that they're still on the other side, like rooting for us, there to help us. And, you know, like I said, most people, you know, are kind of cheated out of that and not able to, like, you know, open themselves up for that. And, you know, I'm so grateful that like you shared that with us and gave us those stories. And, you know, it's going to impact a lot of people who needs to hear that, and it needs that surety, you know, especially in the world, the type of world we live in right now, where there's so much condemnation and so much tearing down of people. With, you know, there's not this love fest going on. You know, we don't take the time out to appreciate people while they're here, give them the flowers while they're here.
Yeah.
So with that said, you know, we're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to check in with Karen and, you know, come back and give you guys some more cool things to take away. If you made it this far, you're going to hear, you know, a quick interrupter, and then we'll be right back.
Before we continue, I want to let you in on an amazing opportunity. Karen Laurie is offering a free 5-day mindset makeover challenge. If you've ever felt stuck or unsure about how to move forward in your mental health journey, this challenge is for you. Visit Karen's website to sign up for free. Don't miss out on a chance to learn from one of the best and start making real, lasting change in your life today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, my Transformers out there, and I hope you guys are enjoying this episode as much as I am. You know, we love to hear from you in the comment section. But let's get back into just some more great stuff from Karen, who's here with us. You know, you help so many clients transform their lives. We talked about that earlier, but I think it'll be great to, like, if you just share maybe a story or two about some clients who overcame some of their subconscious programming, which we learned that subconscious programming, it is not, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing because we need the subconscious, but there are things that we shouldn't let loop around. And, you know, you gave a real good strategy for us that we can, like, implement right away, where we can just put on some music and pick out some of the favorite things of our music and kind of turn that into a rendition of, like, our own, like, subconscious programming. You know, but what kind of impact have some of these things you work with, you know, had on their lives?
Yeah. For example, one client bought a used car, and then took it to a shop to get something done with it. She then, I guess there was a rain, and the car flooded inside. And she called the shop and said, "Can you fix my car?" They said, "No, no." And it was flooded. She couldn't get the water out. She called the place where she bought it. They said it's past 30 days. So she didn't know what to do. She did get a rental car from her insurance, but she was just panicked, and she was freaking out. She thought it was going to be so expensive, and she was panicked, and she couldn't get help. Nobody at the car shop would help her. Nobody at the car sales place would help her. The insurance helped her, but otherwise she was panicked. And she was talking about it one day, and I remembered when she was 5 that I learned this from talking to her earlier. She'd been sexually abused by a cousin, and she came to tell her mom and her aunts who were in the house, and they laughed at her. They didn't help her.
Mm.
So she grew up with this subconscious belief that no one can help you. That's what was being triggered with the car. She didn't even believe when I was saying this that it could have any correlation. But we worked on shifting that belief. And this was in a group call. We worked on shifting that belief getting it so that she knew that she could be helped. That was on a Wednesday night. Thursday morning, 7 a.m., she calls me and she says, Karen, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? And she said, my insurance called and said I could have the car for another month, rental car for another month. The guy at the shop where I had been taking it and asking questions and trying to get help for the last month called this morning and said, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to be the one that's responsible to make sure it gets taken care of. I will make sure you get the help you need. And then the car place where she bought the car from called and said, look, if you can't get this fixed, we'll take it back. And all of this happened when she changed her subconscious mind by recognizing that she could be helped. But she wasn't aware that she had that bad programming, that she could never be helped. And so, she hadn't been aware of it until that session. And it was amazing how, like, when you look back on her life before that moment, people weren't helping her. Then she told me, like, a little while later, she lives in this, not in a really nice neighborhood, but in a small little apartment. And so she's taking a walk and this neighbor says to her, you're always so kind to me. He said, I want to give you this. And he had an envelope with him and he just gave it to her. And she said, thank you. She didn't know what it was. She went back to her place and he gave her $1,000. This is somebody who's like wanted more money, right? So her consciousness had shifted and now she didn't even know him that well. She had had conversations with him, but she didn't know him. And he did it again a couple weeks later. So she was getting money out of the blue. And then somebody else gave her money. And then somebody else gave her some gifts. And like she started realizing people are helping me. And it was so fascinating because once she started to put it into practice, she's a very independent girl. She's amazing. She can do all these things on her own. But when she started putting this into practice, the whole universe responded. All around her, the universe responded. And it took care of her. And so that's one example. I have so many, but that's one example. Do you want one more?
Yeah, you know what? Give us one more because people will say, "Oh, that sounds so magical," but it's real work. And I think one more story would just like kind of emphasize that. That's great.
So I had a client who lived in another country. She was on disability and she couldn't walk. She had some physical neurological issue. And she couldn't make money because she was on disability in her country, so she wasn't allowed to work. So we started to work on her consciousness about money. And she was living a kind of meager life because there just wasn't that money. And she had to go to the disability place every week to get the money that she needed. So they wouldn't even give it to her for a month, and she had to go. And she was hard for her. She had to drive. She couldn't walk. She had a lot of things. So we start working on it, and she starts shifting a lot of belief systems. And out of the blue, her ex-husband, she'd had 2 kids with him. Her ex-husband reaches out and says, I've never paid you alimony or supported the kids. I want to make amends, and here is this money. And so he gave her some sum of money that was miraculous to her. Then both of her kids were going to college and both ended up getting scholarships, so she didn't have to pay for that. Then her daughter lived in the same town, was going to go to school in the same town, and said, I'll come stay with you. I'll take care of you. I'll cook for you. I'll do that. And then I'll go to school. And is that okay? And she was like, yes, please. And, I can take you to things, if you need to go somewhere, I can go shopping for you and all that kind of stuff. So that happened. And then she goes to the disability place and people were putting money in her meter when she was too long in the disability place or other places she was going. So people like the whole universe, they didn't know her. They didn't see her. They just putting money in her meter extra to make sure she's not getting a ticket. Right. So she goes into the disability place and they see her every week and they're seeing her transform. So one day, one of them said to her, you're getting disability, so you're not allowed to work unless you work with us. Would you like to work with us? We can pay you. You will work at home. It'll just be on the computer. You can kind of work at your schedule, but we'll pay you so you'll be able to get a little bit of extra money as well. And she was like, oh my God. So it really was great because her consciousness shifted. And it was a consciousness of lack because she had an amazing talent. She was very, very talented, but she couldn't do her talent anymore because of this neurological thing. And so she she had this lack because she'd been traveling all over the world doing a talent, doing all this stuff. And now she had that lack consciousness until she started working with me, and we shifted it. And she was just became this, she became more abundant. She started doing more things that were fun. She started doing more things that were sexy for her. She became more of herself. And so it was just beautiful. So that kind of stuff. And she didn't know that her lack of her thinking about her inability to move or to play the music that she had played or to do these things was creating a lack in her consciousness. But I could see it, and we had talked about it again before, and so I got it, and that's how we started to shift stuff. And it's just amazing, so.
Truly is, it truly is amazing. And I was, I would definitely, put, my money on it that once these transformations start happening for a lot of these people that they can't believe it themselves.
It's kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of them are like, I cannot believe what is happening to me. This is amazing. Yeah. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. I just feel so thankful
ahead,
because I get people that are willing to work. I get people that are willing to do the work. And when they do the work, because I don't want to be the guru. I want them to be empowered so that they can do this themselves, so that they can heal themselves. So I teach them, I help them do it, when they're new and they can't do it, but I also teach them how to do it for themselves so that they can really have the power and own the power, right? I mean, part of the thing that I didn't like when I was going to therapy all the time was that it was always the therapist was going to fix me. Nobody can fix us. We have to be willing to do the work. Yeah, people can help, people can inspire you, but a lot of doctors and therapists, they want the patients. And I'd rather you thrive. I like money. I don't mind being paid, but I would rather see you thriving. That's where I get my juice, is from watching other people get what they want. I've always loved that, even when I was a kid.
Yeah, and that's a very true statement that that you just said there, and the fact that you're offering free access to your books at productpleasure.com, to our listeners, that'll give them the opportunity to begin seeing true transformation in their own lives after reading. So what can the readers expect to learn from these books? Because I definitely want them to have one, and I want to dive in some of them myself.
Well, first, if you want to get the books for free, it's chronicpleasurebook.com.
Okay.
And there's 3 books on there. The first book, I've had people reconnect. Like one of my clients, his mom died when he was 6. So he'd had this loss of a mom, raised by a single dad. And, just, it was tough.
Wow.
And he read my book. And by reading my book and doing some of the practices, this was before he worked with me, he started to connect with his mom, and he couldn't believe it. So he wrote me, like a thank you thing about how much he got from my book. And then he kept telling me things that were happening because he's putting the book in practice. And then he became a client to go deeper. So that's really cool. Another, it's so you can get so much from the book. Of course, like that first book I wrote in 2018. So now it's 6 years later, I've grown. I've learned more. I've improved more. So there's everything that I knew to put in, I couldn't make it a 3,000 page. It's like pretty long though. It's over, I think it's around 300 words. My publisher was like, most people write books that are like 100 pages. She said, you gave away so much. I said, well, I want people to get the healing that they have, so I give the books away, chronicpleasurebook.com. The second book is a memoir just because my publisher had seen me on TV shows and she wanted to know about my life. And then the third book is about chronic pleasure in relationships. And I wrote that book because, it's funny. I went to lunch or to dinner with during the pandemic. I went to dinner with these two girls. One was a Miss Universe, unbelievable, tall, beautiful, thick blonde hair. She was Norwegian, super beautiful, huge breasts, just perfect beauty. And as we're walking to the restaurant, she says, God, I can't meet any quality men. And I meet quality men all the time. And she said, I can't meet any quality men. It's just ridiculous. And so I listened to her while we were having dinner, and she was basically, saying all this stuff. I didn't end up coaching her, but I ended up using what I was trying to decide do I want to write a book about relationships, or do I want to write a book about sex, or do I want to write a book about staying youthful as you get older? And so I decided to write this book about relationships because I thought, she should have quality men. She rescues animals. She's like so freaking cute, super amazing, not just physically, but a sweetheart, like a real sweetheart. And so I wrote this book. Basically, she was the person I wrote it to. So it's kind of like a love letter to her, but it's also a love letter to those people who, like her, can't find any quality men, like her, don't feel like they can trust men, like her, don't feel like men are good, So she was that's why I wrote that third book. And also from my own experience, because I had a huge transformation, realizing one of my subconscious beliefs, having been sexually abused as a kid, one of my beliefs is that men just are out, just out for sex. And then I thought, oh my God, that's a terrible thing to believe. Once I saw it, and I had been like that. That's how I had not seen it for so many years, and created men doing just exactly that. So I ended up writing what I wanted men to be, and also from my experience, what men had been to me in positive ways. Mostly men I didn't know, like men fly me in airplanes because most pilots are men. Women fly too, but there were a lot of men at that time that flew me. And, men cook me great meals because I've been to many restaurants where the chefs are men. I've been to restaurants with women who are chefs too, but men help me work out, right? I have a group of guys I used to work out with, and they always spotted me and they always lifted me up when I couldn't reach the bar to do the stuff, So I just started to write out everything I loved about men. And literally that day I wrote for like 5 hours. And I was so full of appreciation. And I got in the car and started driving, and these two guys were in the car next to me at a light, and they rolled down the window and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to dinner." And they said, "Want to come to dinner with us?" And I looked at them and I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because we're really fun and we're going to go to a great restaurant." I said, "Where are you going?" And he told me a restaurant that I had never been to and I wanted to go to. And I was like, "Okay, I'll meet you there." So I followed them to get there. And we had like a 5-hour meal, and they were great. And then one of them gave me tickets to the Lakers on the second row right behind Kobe Bryant. We just had great fun, and it was just fun. And it was just a really thing. And then after that, it was like I had been invisible to men in a lot of ways, except for just sexual. But after that, men saw me, and men started to court me, and men started to be kind, and men started to be generous. And it was just a totally different experience of men. And so that also was part of why I wrote that book.
Isn't it amazing how when you take the blinders off, it's like a whole new world out there? Yeah,
Exactly.
that's incredible. And I think that book is very timely in like the way relations are between men and women right now. And I'm definitely going to put that on the high recommendation list, even without reading it, even without reading it, because I know so many women, and I also know so many man too who struggle with just that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And we're taught that, oh, your mom is bad at this. Your dad is bad at
right.
this. It's just like this constant boys do this, girls do this. We're trained. Boys don't cry. Girls don't get angry. There's all this programming. And when I had to see all of it in me in order to now spot it in other people. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that makes a lot of sense, ton of sense. And so, like, looking ahead, where do you see your work heading in the future? Because you mentioned earlier about, like, just your journey and your healing just being endless. It's infinite. We don't know how far we got to go before we, like, actually get there. But even when we get there, we're probably on the other side and looking at this perfect body, perfect spirit that we have, made whole. But with your work in particular, how do you think your coaching, your teachings will continue to ripple out and impact people? I know it's a two sandwich question, but maybe you can turn it into one burger.
So I just feel to me, my connection with my spirit is the most important thing in my life. And my
Uh-huh.
spirit guides me. And so as long as I'm being guided to be of benefit in this way, that's what I'll do. I also love acting. And so that's something that I would like to do as well.
Okay.
But regarding, you know, it has always been, I've always like gotten emotional when people say,
Yeah.
and like I said, from when I was a kid, I thought I could never do X and then I did it. And that always moves me so much. And
Yeah.
I just, I'm a, I love that feeling of watching people come in with whatever limitations they have. And some people don't have that many limitations, but they need to
Uh-huh.
get just the few of them out of the way so that they can flow. But to watch them come in and then watch them start to get healthy, to get their life on track, to be able to do things that they couldn't do. Even my workout, I do all these workouts on YouTube, and people say, I can't believe you can do that, or I didn't know I could do that. And then they try it. And I'm not
Uh-huh.
like a coach or anything. I just share what I'm doing, but they try it and then they go, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do it, or I couldn't do it at all. But and I say, keep practicing, you'll get it. Because it's a, I'm practicing in a different way, because
Yeah.
with everything, you want to break it down into the tiniest bits that you can do something. So if you're doing whatever it is, so I used to be an acrobat and I had an injury, so my hand is not as strong. It's 8 years ago, but still. That's why I wrote my first book, because I didn't have any pain. I severed 3 tendons. I had hand
Wow.
therapy for 10 months, and I had, obviously surgery to reattach them, and I didn't have any pain in it. And the guy who was the hand therapist, he said, I don't like people who are always happy. I said, cool. And then he kept working on me. And within like a couple of weeks, he would tell the people next to me, you got to talk to Karen. She's like authentically happy. She's not pretending to be happy. She's actually happy. So I ended up making friends with all these people. But I wrote the book,
Yeah.
Chronic Pleasure, the first book, because I had funded my pleasure so much before I got injured that I didn't perceive the pain, even though I had surgery and stitches and all that
Right.
stuff. So I feel like I will keep doing what I'm doing in terms of working with people, but I also feel like other things are opening up. So
Uh-huh.
I'm also I do this, I work with a company that has created kelp that can withstand how the ocean is more acidic now. The ocean is more polluted and the ocean is warmer. And
Yeah.
so the kelp um, is decimated. California's lost like 96% of its kelp. And I interviewed the guy who runs this company on my podcast, and then I adopted his project. And so I've brought in people who can do marketing. I've brought in people who can connect with um, legislature people. But
Yeah.
kelp is amazing. It feeds otters, it feeds starfish and seahorses and abalone, and it keeps, we're getting too many of those, oh, I forget what they're called, but they're these purple sea urchins. We're getting too many sea urchins because the kelp is decimated. So the sea urchins now are kind of overtaking, which is changing the whole ecosystem. When I was a kid, we'd swim on the beach and there'd be kelp trapping our ankles, or trapping part of our body, and we'd get out of the sea and we'd sometimes be dragging bits of kelp out, because it just was so endemic. And now it's so much gone. You never see kelp. There's a couple places in Mexico and a couple places in California where the kelp has started to grow back a little bit, but we know how to grow it where there's more, when there's more acidity, more pollution, and warmer temperatures, and the kelp is able to thrive. And so it's really exciting. Kelp sequesters heavy metals, and kelp can be made into biofuel. And you can take the heavy metals out of the kelp and sell them back to places that are responsible with their use of heavy metals. So it doesn't have to be, and if kelp is used, so we use a lot of ethanol now, which comes from corn. The corn needs, in order for it to grow, it's growing in dead soil because of all the pesticides. And so it needs more pesticides and it needs GMO to be able to grow in this dead soil. The dead soil it doesn't hold any water, and we lose topsoil from the dead soil. We have so much less topsoil in America than we used to. The topsoil goes into the ocean, and because it's laden with fertilizers and chemicals and pesticides, it creates a cover over certain parts of the ocean, and we have a whole dead zone in the ocean off the Gulf of Mexico, off the Gulf, between Mexico and Texas, and or between the Gulf around Texas, somewhere in there. And this dead zone doesn't have to be there if you're doing organic regenerative farming. And kelp also, it can make the biofuel instead of the ethanol, but it can also, it doesn't need pesticides. It doesn't need fertilizer. It's the ocean. It's got everything. It's nature. And so you don't need to do anything fake. You don't need to do GMO. You don't need to do any of that stuff. Kelp will thrive if you know how to do it in a right way. No DNA manipulation at all. It will thrive. And so you're not going to, you could go back and restore all that soil. Kelp helps restore soil. I mean, kelp is just like amazing. I've fallen in love with kelp, but kelp helps restore soil. Kelp helps, if cows eat kelp as part of their diet, if they eat the natural grasses, and if they add kelp, if they're doing grain, which I don't recommend, because then you get more omega-6 and you need more omega-3. But anyway, if cows were given kelp as part of their diet, they don't have as much methane that they release. And if cows eat native grasses, the methane also reduces, because there's something in the grasses that absorbs or does something. It ameliorates the methane that any cow can make. So it's just mind-blowing how brilliant nature is. So I see myself doing things more with nature and the environment as well. And then I see myself acting. So I just have things I love. So
a lot of passions and just bringing that passion project to awareness. And I remember being in San Diego seeing some of that stuff. I didn't know what it was. But just to know how important it is, and how just little things like that can really help our environment, really help take care of where we live at, without delving into so much of this generic and got terrible scientific stuff that just will not help us at all. Just keep us on an endless loop of trying to figure it out.
Right.
But like you said, we need to harness the brilliance of nature, and what God has already put here on earth, and make it work for us, because if we don't do it, it's gonna perish. So then you're gonna miss out on so much great stuff.
And it's so key, because nature is the best teacher. And if you look at nature, the sun always shines. So that's kind of, I've used the sun as my teacher about unconditional love. Nature's abundant. Nature is prolific. Nature is creative. Nature is diverse. Nature is persistent. Nature is resilient. Nature keeps coming back. Nature is playful. You see the birds and the squirrels and the butterflies. Nature is amazing. Nature is like innovative, just like like you look at a seahorse and then you look at a butterfly and then you look at when a cocoon turns, when a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis, it dissolves into what scientists call imaginal cells. And then those imaginal cells become a butterfly. Like, who thinks of that, right?
Yep.
And just the fact that we have eyes and that they cross in our brain, the optic nerves cross into the vision center, because that's going to help us see better, right? And the fact that we have noses and mouths and we have our taste buds change depending on what we eat and drink. And so if you are craving sugar and you don't eat sugar, your taste buds will find sugar not as tasty. If you don't eat grains, I don't eat sugar or grains or anything processed. When you stop eating that stuff, your taste buds will change. And then things that are just simple without sugar are like amazing, mind-blowing, so good. So nature is amazing.
Yeah, and speaking of just amazing and just the spiritual with the physical, you said before that life on earth can be like heaven on earth. And I find those concepts so compelling. That's a compelling concept. And a lot of people still don't know what it means. But what do you mean by it? And how can we as individuals move towards that vision?
So when I was talking about when I died, but that feeling of, total connection, being understood, being known, being loved, being accepted completely, being safe and secure, that feeling, and super relaxed, that feeling is basically what Johnny confirmed to me and my dad once they were dead, and I connected with them. I connected with both of them years after they had died. So I didn't know how to do it before. I had psychic things before to a degree, but it just got really increased as I was starting to heal. And so Johnny said to me, "You don't have to kill yourself," because he did kill himself. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You don't have to kill yourself to get that benefit." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "If you start practicing, writing out appreciation, thinking about things that you want and envisioning them, if you start listening to the music that makes you happy, that has the words that make you happy, like don't listen to something that doesn't make you happy. Like the lyrics, if the lyrics are telling you something bad, I had so many bad songs in my head that I had to stop doing. But anyway, he just said, do something else that makes you feel good emotionally, and you'll start to live in this. And so what's happened is I've practiced this stuff for 15 years, maybe even a little longer now. And what's happened is I feel accepted, not necessarily by people, but by my spirit. I feel completely known and understood by my spirit. I feel completely safe and secure. I feel unconditionally loved. I feel understood. I feel completely accepted. All of that is within all of us, and it's there if we access our spirit. The only problem is many people have ideas about death and ideas about their spirit that get in the way. I had them. And so once you get those cleared and you start going into practicing being in that state by doing things, like I said, like appreciation, when you do that, you shift yourself. And with the way I do any practice, this is not in my first book because I kind of learned it as I was going, writing my second book, which is that when I am doing a practice, let's say I'm writing appreciation, I'm going to start with something simple like nature, right? So I could talk about nature for an hour and still be amazed. So I just, I write all the things that I had said a few minutes ago. It's awe-inspiring, it's beautiful, it's spacious, it's glorious, it's resilient, it's innovative, it's creative, it's, it's unconditional, all of that stuff. As I write it, usually I'll start to get either an emotional or a physical sensation. This is one of my favorite things to help people understand. If I get an emotional or physical sensation, let's say I feel myself smiling more, that means, I would write, I'm smiling more, or I feel tears of appreciation, or my heart feels like it's expanding. So while I'm writing out the appreciation, I will write out my emotional shifts because I want to recognize that I am shifting myself emotionally. And then I'll write out my physical shifts, the sensation. I'm breathing deeper. My back feels like it relaxed. My shoulders have dropped. Whatever it is that I'm perceiving, I'll write it down intermixed with, imaginal cells of butterflies, right? So that's a coalescence. So, because the body is a reflection of your subconscious. And so when you are practicing being able to perceive the way you are impacting your own physiology, you get your power back. The Hippocrates, who is I'll shut up in a minute. Sorry, Hippocrates, who is okay. Is a healer back in the day. Hippocrates said, the best medicine is to teach you not to need any. I relate to that guy. That's what I mean, I do it in a nice way, but some people still take medicine, but most of them can get off of it pretty easily. Once they learn the tricks.
That's true, Karen. Like, wow, I think this is really good. That's a real good note to leave up on. And I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for your insightfulness, your transformative conversation. I know a lot of our listeners, they're going to get something out of this. They're going to get a lot of value out of this. In fact, everything that you shared today. And, maybe just tell them the link one more time so they can head over there.
Yeah. And if you put it in the show notes, that would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I would definitely do that.
Chronic, like CHRONIC, pleasure, PLEASURE, book, BOOK.com, chronicpleasurebook.com. So you can download all three of the books or just one, whichever one you're interested in. They're all there.
Yeah, definitely everybody grab those free books and start your own journey of mastering health, relationships, and wealth. And don't forget, if something from today's episode resonates with you, is it okay if they reach out to you directly, Karen?
Yeah. In fact, my contact is in the back of my book.
Excellent. So she's offering a lot of wisdom and power that, I know that can change your life. She's definitely touched me today. And, until next time, everyone, keep transforming your life, purpose, and passion. I'm Marcus Hart, along with Karen. We're out.
I stand for what you stand for. I'm at your door like the landlord. I can see the future, I fast forward. I get on the mic and I transform. Follow me, I'm in rare form. Follow me on this world tour. The asteroid that you can't avoid.